Hi friends, welcome to episode number 5 of School Librarians United. I am your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian for 11 years, I found myself asking the question, where is the podcast that'll help me do my job? I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. I've encountered something of a Murphy's Law of podcasting. I will stumble on a terrific article after having already recorded the relevant podcast. And understandably, episodes can't be all-encompassing, but I do like to continue discussion threads, especially when it is so important to what we do as school librarians. Because weeding happens both intentionally and throughout the day as students come to check out books, it shouldn't surprise me that weeding remains a popular discussion topic for librarians in all settings. A few days ago, I read an article on the American Association of School Librarians online magazine, Knowledge Quest. Author and librarian Diana Rendina wrote, "How to Weed by the Numbers and Clean Up Your Collection," posted on September 25th, 2017. I'll include a link in the show notes. She made 2 excellent points about using circulation statistics when weeding. First, and the most obvious, is to use non-circulation statistics to target your weeding efforts. Secondly, is to use your circulation statistics as evidence when requesting additional funding for your library. I can speak to the persuasive impact of collection statistics when I applied for a grant. My school had a foundation which supplements educational materials and reviewed grants twice a year. My school had originally been a middle school, and years before I started there, a new middle school was built, and my school became the new elementary school. Clearly, some parts of the middle school library collection never actually left the building. The middle school book stamps were all over the inside covers of many of our books. The collection statistics of my biography section revealed an average age of 1960. With that information, I felt justified in writing a grant for $400. Within 1 year, and with some savage weeding of my biography section and the infusion of brand new books, I was able to raise the average age to 1985. I did want to add that circulation statistics will not always reveal which copies in your collection needed to be weeded and then replaced. Sometimes the only way to determine replacement copies is to dive into your collection and page through the most popular titles in circulation. Now, join me today as we tackle the issue of Book Snob. If you haven't heard the previous episode, number 4, Book Warden, I strongly suggest you do so first. I was motivated to create a 2-part podcast because of something I saw this past July from Scholastic's Reading Summit, and it was posted on Twitter. This picture was of a slide from a presentation by Annie Ward, co-author with Stephanie Harvey of a book called Striving to Thriving, How to Grow Capable, Confident Readers. The slide was titled Book Warden, and it listed 5 ways in which adults limit students' reading. The very first way is to confine kids to the just right book, and I'll attach a link in the episode notes. In episode 4, Book Warden, I admitted to restricting some books from circulation. I admitted I limit how many books my students can check out. And as a librarian, I make choices as to which books are purchased. And as a librarian, I encourage students to find the just right book which they can read. Today, I wanted to address a related accusation, and that is one of book snobbery. Corrina Allen, in episode number 55 of Books Between podcast, used the term book witch, and I have used the term gatekeeper or tour guide to describe how I sometimes regard my role as school librarian. Can I ask right off the bat, isn't there an expectation that all librarians use judgment when selecting books to purchase for a collection? That judgment is based on many factors: who your patrons are, how much is your budget, and yes, selecting books which you would be proud to circulate. Don't my teachers assume I'm being selective when I purchase books for our students? One of my favorite classes in library school was collection development. I know some of my parents hope I'm selective when developing our collection. I mentioned in the previous episode, number 4, Book Warden, that I've received parent emails asking me to check their child's selection each week and encourage they pick high-quality books. This can be tricky because I teach more than 700 students in 4 different libraries, but I do my best, working with my assistant, to be aware when these students come to the circulation desk that they have spent some time considering which books they want to read each week. So, am I a book snob because I try to buy some of the award winners each year? Absolutely. I can't afford them all, but I have to pick a few. And do I make sure to point out the shiny sticker on the cover and the spine label designation to my students when they go to make their book selections? Absolutely. Do I read the New York Times book review on Sunday? I do. And I do look at the weeks spent on the bestseller list when I consider my next book order? Absolutely. Does it make me a snob? Yep, I'm an informed book snob. Am I a book snob because I read fellow librarians' blogs and I listen to their book review podcasts when I'm deciding which books I'll buy next? Guilty. Do I sometimes read a book in its entirety before deciding if I think its contents are appropriate for my elementary students? I do as often as I can. Am I a book snob because I tend to steer away from books about TV programs and junior novelizations of movies? I do. These tend to be short-lived and student interest fades fast, and these become incredibly dated, and especially when many of these books are offered at book fairs and they're in paperback, they tend to fall apart and they get discarded within a couple of years anyway. I will say, in some cases, I am most definitely not a book snob. I find all of the following books to be wonderful additions to my collection. I love graphic novels. There is an upcoming episode in the works as we speak. I love investing a considerable amount of my budget in expanding this collection, and I love building a fan base. I'll admit I found 3 Plants vs. Zombie hardcover graphic novels at a garage sale for $1 each, and here's the upswing. These books drew so much traffic that I had a waiting list. And when these books were all checked out, it gave me the perfect opportunity to promote other books from our graphic novel collection. And what about Captain Underpants, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes? I've got all of them. I even have shelf labels with color pictures so students have an easier time locating them. Joke books. What a terrific way to hook reluctant readers. The added bonus here is rarely do students read joke books to themselves. They love to show off and immediately start reading riddles out loud to anyone around them, me included. Last week checkout during 3rd grade, I had a student reading me riddles for the entire checkout. Some of my shyest, most reserved students are big fans of the joke books, and they've become instantly brave around their peers when they're armed with a book. Another added bonus, 818 Jokes is right next door to the poetry section, and I always push poetry when I'm in the neighborhood. I am a devoted audiobook fan, and I also have an upcoming episode on audiobooks. Without audiobooks, it is unlikely I'd ever finish a book during the school year. I use Overdrive through my public library, and our district has its own Overdrive account, which we use with our students from elementary through high school. Access to ebooks means that my students can conduct research remotely and immediately, regardless of when their class comes to the library. And while personally, it's my least favorite format, I can completely see the advantage when traveling. I always demonstrate to my students how to access these digital resources when they're using our library website. Not only that, I confess I opt to purchase copies of a book with the movie version cover versus the original cover art when it was first published. I can see the benefits to the movie version of the cover because these books circulate more. These covers are eye-catching, and the students are immediately drawn to them when they realize they've already seen the movie. I'm fine purchasing an updated copy if it means the students will be more likely to pick it up off the shelf and take a look. A good example is A Wrinkle in Time, first published in 1962, versus the 2017 cover, which is based on the movie adaptation. I will suggest, however, that in some cases the word Disney is over the title of the new 2017 cover because it also includes color photos from the movie. This may or may not be something that you're interested in putting in your collection. Another good example would be Ender's Game, which first was published in 1994 versus the movie cover, which was released in 2013. A really excellent example would be How to Eat Fried Worms, which was a book that was published in 1953 versus the movie cover, which was released in 2006. And finally, another example is the book which is in nonstop circulation this week. It's an ancient copy of John Bellairs' The House with a Clock in Its Walls, published in 1973. I intend to buy replacement copies when my fall order is placed, and I'm guessing the cover art will be updated. I really appreciate the recommendations Corrina Allen made in episode number 55 of the Books Between podcast, to be careful with the words we use and our body language when working with students who are selecting books, so as not to discourage our students' enthusiasm for reading or to appear judgmental about the choices they make in their book checkout. I would like to shift the focus of this episode now to an article which addresses so many issues relevant to school libraries. I will no doubt reference it in several upcoming episodes. In doing the research for this podcast, I have come across Annie Ward on multiple occasions, and every time I need to unpack all that she has written and the observations she makes. She is an assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction for a public school district in the state of New York, a district whose name I will butcher. She is also the co-author of From Striving to Thriving: How to Grow Confident, Capable Readers. The more I read by her, the more I know I would have liked to have worked in her building. I know she's addressing classroom teachers, but I can't help but think that many of her conclusions resonate in today's school libraries. For the purposes of today's episode, I read Annie Ward's article, The Nutritional Value of Dessert Books, written for Scholastic.com under the Reader Leader blog. The title alone alludes to the idea that in collections of books, whether in the classroom libraries or in the school library, there is a hierarchy of books ranging from high quality to dessert, or as I unfortunately call them, the cookie jar of the library. When I first came to my current library, I was asked by a teacher why I was promoting the graphic novel collection. I had relocated it to a standalone bookcase with brightly colored signage and pictures depicting the different characters so my students could more easily locate their favorites. My explanation, because I am expected to justify why budget money is being spent this way, was that some reluctant readers found these books less intimidating and more inviting. But while I'm right in saying that, I'm also wrong. As Annie Ward pointed out in an article, the metaphor of the dessert book implies that it lacks the value of a quality book. While Annie Ward was referring to how-to books, DK Eyewitness compendia, joke books, atlases, and coffee table books, I was defending the growing graphic novel section which I had so thoughtfully assembled. All of the books have value because they pique the interest of the reader. Reader curiosity is the key to sustained interest and consequently compels the reader to seek out additional reading materials. We have all seen this as our young experts evolve over the year, some of them in the dinosaur shelf, gems, volcanoes, and all breeds of cats and dogs. This is why we shouldn't dismiss any book as being a dessert book. I would like to quote Annie Ward. She says, "It seems to me that the healthiest approach to the conundrum of how closely to regulate a child's independent reading diet is to adopt an inquiry stance around his or her selections. Rather than act as a book warden, dismissing or postponing children's choices out of the gate, why not kid watch, confer, and respectfully probe before assuming a book has limited nutritional value?" End quote. Annie Ward has given me a lot to consider, and I will definitely be more understanding of my students and their selections each week, and remember that their curiosity will motivate them more than I ever could. I would like to thank you for listening today. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Share this podcast with other school librarians in your district and your PLN. Consider leaving a rating on iTunes as it helps other school librarians learn about this podcast. I would also like to thank Nazar Ryback at hooksounds.com for the music you've heard today. As always, I invite your feedback and contributions. Please email me at schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter. The topic of our next episode will be classroom libraries, rivals or partners. I hope you will tune in.